Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. Zach Eichenberger here, Director of Marketing for Control Product Systems Group. Sorry, we got a little bit of a late start. These hiccups happen, but we'll record this session so that we can share it with our cohorts later. And just disclaimer, though, you are being recorded. We'll send that out with the post-webinar notes as we always do. So please mute your mics and just so we can maintain audio quality, but encourage you to ask questions throughout the session via chat. I and others will monitor that chat line and feed those questions back to Mike and the rest of the team as necessary. We're scheduled for 1 hour. I know we've condensed this a little bit, but I think we'll have plenty of time looking at the agenda to get through the content and have some time for Q&A. So we got Mike Torin in Infinity RFID today. Mike's the founder and president of Infinity RFID. He's going to walk us through this product line, and Mike has the heart of a teacher, though. So along the way, I'm sure he's going to break down some of the basics of RFID, give us some tips and tricks and do's and don'ts, and then cover some really critical updates to keep in mind when servicing legacy installations. So make sure you stay tuned to the end. And if you don't know RFID or Infinity RFID, they offer high quality products with awesome service. He has a team of experts with vast industry knowledge that doesn't just know RFID. They have experience with all kinds of gate and barrier gate operators. They have experience with access controllers and telephone entry. They understand loop systems and the overall ecosystem of products required to provide a complete solution. And I think more importantly, if you run into a snag on a project, they're thinking about how all these products work together and affect performance of each other. So all this to say that they have your back, and our RFID team has your back as well. Chris Peterson, Butch Showers, I saw Janine on there. They lead a team of RFID experts. Very proud of what they do on a day-to-day basis. And RFID can be pretty simple, right, for the most part. But it can certainly get complicated or into the weeds when you're integrating with, say, existing toll tags or tight lane situations, or integration with systems not using, standard Wiegand protocols, for instance. So lean on those teams, both Infinity and CPSG RFID teams to get you through those projects. And my other comment about RFID, look, you can go find a cheap RFID system, right? I'm not telling anybody on this call anything you don't already know. You can buy cheap anything these days, right? You want a cheap gate operator access controller, just look no further than Amazon. But we run industry surveys every year, and I highly recommend that you participate in future years so that you get the data points from us on a timely basis. But what our clients tell us is that, and as professionals in the industry, your reputation is the most critical driver to long-term success. So don't hang that reputation on inexpensive products that might save you a few bucks on the front end, but cost you more in the long term. So that goes for any products or any product category that you serve. And again, I'm not telling anybody on this call anything they don't already know. You're on this call for a reason, because you're here to learn more about one of the highest quality systems we offer. So Mike, I'll hand the mic to you. It's great having you back for another webinar, another educational opportunity. So sorry for the long-winded intro, but you knew I was going to do it anyways. So take it away.
Yeah, that was really thorough. That's a great summary of us and of the industry, really. Glad to be here. The three principal guys here, we started in the industry together over 20 years ago, and we've sold almost everything from cameras to bollards to crash barriers to gate operators to it's been a pretty well read, but we're pretty diverse. I mean, I need to go find it, but I actually designed gate operators way back when. So RFID isn't my first gig. And I do understand, and it's really a lot of the dealers I talk to when I do support, because I actually do frontline support for the readers portion of the business. And the things that I can give people insights for, like, settings on phone systems to show Wiegand, or or how things hook up and better ways to do things. There's things that I give people the pearls of wisdom during those tech calls that aren't just RFID. So I think you hit the nail on the head. One of the biggest things we do that's different is we're 100% support, and we understand how not just our stuff works, but everybody else's stuff works too. So yeah, it's a good match, really. So Infinity RFID, let me jog the person. You kind of went through some of it, but just the high points of the company. Basically, we're custom suppliers. Rather than make one flavor, we make custom flavors for each and everybody. You can request us to do custom things for you. And there's some pluses and minuses later on that I'll talk about that. We were founded in 2013. We're located in just the greater LA area in California. And we really just only go after access control and parking. Zach talked about tolling and some of the other adjacent markets. All we do is vehicles, and just for those markets. So for those guys out there that are kind of new to RFID, I had a couple of slides in the very beginning to show you just kind of the components and how it works. So the basic thing is you got to have an RFID tag, and that's your credential that goes on the vehicle. You got to have a reader that picks up that credential, takes that ID and passes on to something else. And that something else is going to be an access controller, which then authorizes or denies, and then opens the gate for the person to drive through. So pretty simple. It's not very many components in the whole system. And this is general RFID, not just Infinity. That's across the board from the industry. That's what it is. And then how it works, basically, in a nutshell, the reader generates a read zone, basically an RF energy field. And RFID tags don't have any batteries, so they're completely passive. So they rely on that read zone, that balloon of energy, in order to operate. So when they get into that balloon, they activate, they power up, and then they share that data. And then the reader picks up that data and then sends it on down the stream. That's pretty much in a nutshell how it works. But if you understand that concept, then you can understand how interference works and some of the other things that might be challenging down the road when you go to install it or go to use it. And then here's just a basic vehicle layout. So you've got basically your barrier. It could be a slide gate, could be a swing gate, could be a barrier arm, something to stop the vehicles from free entering. And then you're going to have some type of an access controller. A lot of times it'll be the phone entry. The phone entry has weakened capability. You're going to have an RFID reader that feeds that phone entry. And then you may or may not have an arming loop. What an arming loop does is basically only turns on the RFID reader whenever there's a vehicle there. That way, somebody walking around with an RFID tag doesn't open the gate. Because per safety standards, you want them to go through a PEG gate, not the vehicle gate. So in a nutshell, that's the layout. Some things I want to talk about that are specific to Infinity. So I want to give you two points of why we're different than a lot of the other RFID suppliers out there, and especially different from anybody else on Amazon. One is that we do a lot of certifications for our products, and that's important. And I'll tell you one of the side reasons why it happens is our technology partner Star Systems goes after the tolling market, and then we share the technologies between the two of us. And because the tolling market is in every state, around every state, but a lot of different states, and more on federal and even on a global level, there's a lot of certification that goes on into their products to allow them to be used on a toll road and in that type of application. So, for instance, our headlamp tag is actually tested against the federal Federal Motor Vehicle Standard, which is an FMVSS 108. And what that does is it basically makes sure that any product that's put on a headlamp doesn't lower the light output below the minimum federal threshold. We test our tags to make sure that that doesn't happen. And that's actually key for a state like California, which requires that to be able to be used in California and be legal. The other one is Omniair. So Omniair is a certification, testing certification, kind of not as big as like UL or I'm thinking of a good one, or even the FCC, but it's one that says, all right, we're going to have a standard for what product can be used on toll roads, and we're going to test these products to make sure they meet the minimum standards. So as a result, you're going to see a lot of our tags are also Omniair certified, so they can actually be used in toll roads, which not just 100 or 500 or 1,000 tags used at a community. We're talking millions of tags on public toll roads like highways and and loops around major metro areas. So bigger scale, a lot more tags, and a lot more abuse, and a lot more use out of the tags. So the standards that our products are set for are higher than a lot of the other ones in the industry. And then the other thing is the way we do our security is different. That's a big other divider. So if you look at this slide, this is how all of our sticker tags with our break and removal break. You've got an adhesive layer, and on top of that adhesive layer is your antenna, your tag antenna, and then above that is a protective layer. So basically, anything that disrupts it is going to pretty much destroy the tag. We go to the next slide. This is where most of, probably 90% of the other guys in the market do their security. So they laminate the antenna portion between layers. And the pictures I show you in the very bottom show you why that's kind of an issue. You can actually take a razor blade and go underneath the tag, the antenna layer, which is on its own protective sheet, and just scrape off the adhesive portion and get that tag off. Now, one thing I want to say as a sidebar is, on a windshield tag like that, a lot of people argue that, you have to break into the car to get to it. And I think what's missing is a lot of the concern isn't so much from outside people going in there and stealing a tag from a car. It's more like, I'm going to sell 100 tags to this community, and I don't want them to share tags between vehicles. So I bought this it's break and removal tag, non-transferable tag, and I don't want them to be able to use it on 5 cars. I want them to have 5 separate tags. So it's not so much, the bad guy in the hoodie. It's the homeowner who wants to get cheap and doesn't want to pay for 5 tags. That's really where that portion is. So when you're a community manager, it's a little bit different of a view that you'd think, looking at it from the outside. And by the way, if you guys want to ask any questions while I go through this, if there's ones that are pertinent to this, feel free, and I'll answer whatever you need to know. And then custom printing. So you can see our bank of custom printers. Basically, we have a standard template we do, but if you want us to do a company logo, if you want to just do a website, if you want us to do, I've even done, for more tags call and have a number on it. But since we're going to pass and we're going to program them individually, we can put whatever you need on them. And we basically, if you want to know the kind of the flow, we have rolls of blank tags sitting on the shelf. We load up the printers and we run a production run through them. So everything is customized, from the printing, the programming, and everything is batch made. So, and then before we drop into the product line, any questions?
I don't see any coming through the chat line, but folks, again, feel free to use the chat line, or as Mike mentioned, go ahead and unmute and ask.
Yep. Okay. So RFID tags, there's a couple of different varieties. One of the most popular ones is universal MET. So a lot of the antennas that are built into the RFID tags are tuned for specific materials. This is a hybrid that can actually do both glass, automotive glass, and automotive plastic. So it's actually a really good option for somebody who wants, one form factor for a community, and then they can choose per the vehicle whether they want to put it on the windshield, they want to put it on the headlamp. But this is a really popular one, and it's for the headlamp. It's meets the federal guidelines, and it's also meets the guidelines, or meets the standards for toll roads. You can see the logos I put in the bottom there. Next one is the headlamp one, and that's actually the most, at this point, that's the most popular tag I have. It outsells all the other ones. And a lot of it is because people, if they're going to choose just one form factor and one spot on the vehicle, this is the one that people go for. And the good news the thing about that is it takes the windshield and any of the windshield mechanics out of the equation. So like any of the metal tinted windshields, since you're not attaching it to the windshield, you're taking that out of the equation and going with one standard. So what you've got dealers across the country that will only use headlamp tags and just standardize to that. So that's an option, and it's like I said, very, very popular option. And then on the bottom right has the same certifications as the previous tag did. And we have windshield mount tags, and currently in the product line we have 2. I've got a small low profile one, which is the SV WMT002, and then I got a larger footprint, longer read range version, which is the SV WMT002X. Both go on windshields. The X version, the long range version, has got a little bit more surface area. So if you want us to do custom printing, that would be the one I would go with. If you want something that's a little more discreet, I would go with a smaller profile one. And both of those aren't on headlamps, unless you've got an old classic car that has a glass headlamp. But those are Omni-Air, which is certified for the toll roads. And then the other variety of tags I've got are the transferables, which means you can take them from one car and you can move them to the other car, depending on how you mount them. So kind of a niche tag I've got is the SVWMT002T. It's a cling tag. So if you can imagine that same antenna structure that's on my my discrete windshield, sandwiched between two vinyl cling layers, kind of like this you'd see for an oil change sticker up in your windshield. It tells you when you want to get your next service. Keep them clean; they stick really well. If you don't handle them very well, get them dirty, things can go kind of sideways in that one. So I've got kind of I hate to say this, but I've got kind of a love-hate relationship with that. When they're used, per the instructions, they're great pieces of technology. If you put them in the hands of people that don't follow the instructions, things can go sideways. But I think that's with anything these days. I mean any technology. Next one, actually the most popular one on this page actually is the TI-HGG001 rear mirror tag. That one, if I were to recommend any transferable tag, that'd be the one I go with. Doesn't need to be on the surface. It can be in the hand as long as you hold the hook part. It could be on the vehicle. You can move from car to car, and it also can be custom printed. But that's where I would go. And the other two I sell, but in much smaller quantities. The TI-CCT001 is your standard Prox card size, but UHF style tag or card. We can custom print those too. We have a zebra printer that can do color and black and white on those. The thing about those is it's got a shorter read range than my other tags. You're looking at probably a 12-foot read range. So if you're going to use that, I would do maybe a side fire where the reader's really on the side of the road facing the doorway, like the driver doorway of the vehicle. And that way the distance is just controlled and the person can hold up the card facing the reader. And then the last one is the SNMMT001, which is our metal mount tag. That's really made for forklifts, something that's big and metal that's going to go past through the gate. Forklift would be one, containers for trucking would be another one. One popular option though is we've had customers use it as a dash tag because it's encased in plastic and it doesn't need to be mounted to anything in particular. It'll actually read at full range by itself and can be placed somewhere. I thought about actually getting some double stick tape, putting it in the back of your mirror. That's a possibility too. Nobody's done that yet, but that it's a possibility. Most of the applications we see it used are riveted to something like a forklift. Something big and metal. And then moving on, we have RFID readers. We've got 3 different readers in the catalog. Our SC1000W is by far our most popular reader. And I think that's because it's really simple and easy reader to deal with. There's no real programming for any of the field adjustments you do in terms of needing a laptop. So standard tools standard tools would be able to go and do any of the adjustments, whether it's the range, whether it's installing an arming loop, doing a retransmission of the Wiegand, turning the audible beeper on and off, and it's got plenty of range for 90% of the applications out there. 20 to 25 feet is plenty for most vehicle lanes. So I think the simplicity is really what sells that product. The other two, and you're going to see the other two are kind of a step up in complexity. So the SB2000W12 Procyon is really made to be a network reader. So it's made to be on a computer network. Like the guardhouse has a network. You can bring an internet line out and attach it to the Procyon. And the thing you'd want to use that for is if you want to do any remote diagnostics, that would be the best reason to use that type of a setup. It is a little farther read range. So if you need to go beyond say the 30 feet to a little bit farther, this would be the reader to go with. And if there's anything you want to do that's completely custom, this would be another reason to use this reader. So say for instance, you wanted custom, I'm trying to think of a good example of a custom. You want to do some weird, some strange data conversions. You've got some legacy tags out there that don't fit Wiegand, don't fit any real standards, and you needed to go and migrate that to make them Wiegand, so that way you can use it with the access controller. This would be a good option for that one, because basically the reader can take embedded Python applications. So custom software, really. And then the last one in the catalog, which is probably the newest one, is the Targos reader, the ST2000. This one's exciting because it's also network based, so it's all Cat5. There's two different power levels. There's a part 15 and a part 90. So just a quick sidebar on FCC part 15. That's can only irradiate 1 watt, which ends up being somewhere in the 30 to 35 foot range. But it can also be operating in part 90 mode, which will get you out to 50, 60 feet. It's actually pretty high power. The only thing is, on a part 90 reader, technically you're going to need a site license to operate at that power level. One good selling point to this reader is it's got an external antenna option. So you can actually cover the main lane, say it's the main visitor lane, or say the main resident lane, and then you also wanted an option to do the guest lane, or maybe the exit lane if the exit lane is close enough. You could do it with one reader and then a much less expensive antenna as an option. So this is a 2-channel reader. There's 2 channels of Wiegand output, standard, and then you just add a cable, add the antenna, and you activate that second channel capability. And then the other big one is it's multi-protocol. So this is really a tolling reader that I brought over to the access control world, and can read all the toll tags that are out there, plus the natively Wiegand transcore tags. Now, there might be a philosophical question of whether you want to read the toll tags or not, because that could impact you being able to sell additional RFID tags to the community. But this one at least has the option to make this work. But I would call us first before you bid that, and talk to myself and Chris Peterson about whether that's a good option for you and whether you really want to do that. So we can really just kind of really think about the path going forward in that scenario. So those are the 3 readers. The best practices and uses. There's the first thing I would do is choosing the right product is the first. That's the start. Which product you want to sell for the application. I kind of hinted about these when I went through the tags, but the universal mount tag would be a one-stop shop. If you wanted to only order one tag and consolidate one tag and made the most flexible, that would be the one. It's the most expensive, but it is the most flexible. The next one down would be the headlamp. If you're going to do it basically one tag and try to keep it under a price point, I would do a headlamp tag. And that takes it out of takes the windshield out of the equation. That'll also kind of alter where you mount the reader. You can actually get away with mounting the reader lower if you're looking at just 4 feet off the ground, wherever the headlamp level would be. So one thing to think about when you talk about supplying the tags is, where is these readers going to be mounted? So windshield tags, you're going to want the windshield or the reader to be up in the 8 to 9 foot range. And the reason why is you want, here, say this is the angle of the windshield. You want the angle of the reader, let me see if I can do it, to be about the same, about parallel. So in order to get that parallel relationship, you're going to need to have the reader up 8 to 9 feet or so to do that. So if you're going to go and mount the reader for, say, a headlamp, and a headlamp can maybe this angle here, you can be here and you can be 4 feet off the ground and still maintain that angle. If you do that, mount the readers at 4 feet, put headlamp tags in, you're gonna have an issue if you decide to go to windshield tags after the fact. If you do universal, you want to find a happy medium between both of them. So when you're choosing these tags, make sure that you also have in mind where and how high and how you're going to mount these readers as well. And then windshield tags was most popular ones in the very beginning, but the one thing that happened was a lot more vehicles started using metallized tint in their windshields, and that caused some issues where either they had to find a cutout in the tint to make them work, or they had to move the tag to another portion of the vehicle, which ended up being the headlamp or the side mirror or the bumper or some other location. So we still sell a ton of them, and they're still widely in use. But I would go there, if there's an economic reason where they don't want to pay for a headlamp tag or a windshield tag, or a universal tag, but they do want RFID. That would be where a windshield would fit these days. And then again, transferable tags, I would lead with a hang tag. That's the easiest one to deal with and the most trouble-free. I'll say it that way in terms of end users touching them. The next would be the top 5 do's and don'ts. So I thought about all the calls that I get on a daily basis about questions about RFID tags and concerns, and these are pretty much the top 5. One of the biggest no-nos I've ever come across is do not let the community, or do not let the dealer or whoever's in charge of the community take the tags, put them in envelopes, and then hand them out to all the end users, all the residents, because you can't trust humanity to put the tag on correctly, or even put the tag on at all. I did an impromptu survey at one of the communities where I sat there, and it was while other work was going on, but I sat there and I watched the community's residents driving through the gate. And it's like 33%, about a third of them had the tag right where we said in the instructions and had no problems getting it. Another third kind of didn't really read it, but thought, this is good enough, and threw it up there. And those guys, for the most part, got in and, went through. And then there was a third that didn't even mount the tag on the windshield. It was in the glove compartment. It was sitting on the dash. They taped it to the rear mirror. And those are the guys that had a lot of problems. So the main idea is if you're gonna deploy an RFID system, and this is any system, any RFID, not just mine, you want to make sure you control how that's mounted to the vehicle. And the best way to do it is to have specific days where either you train the community, and the community's managers and people put the tags on, or you as a dealer or as an installer, you put the tags on. And just have a day where they come through and they register and you put the tag on and they're off on their way. And that's the only way to really ensure that you've got consistent installations. Because if you don't do that, it's going to be a nightmare with that 30% that just didn't decide to do the right thing and install it. Issue number 2 would be, when you're handling the tag, make sure you protect the tag. If you looked at the very beginning where I had the cutout of how the tag's made, because of the way the adhesive and the antenna level and the top is, you really don't want to bend any of that or crease any of that, because that will actually put a fracture into the antenna. So yes, it is break and removal, and that break and removal does take special handling. The third one, it should be obvious, but I see it. I was looking for pictures. I've got a picture of a technician putting a tag on a car. I was looking for one where somebody had tried to take the tag off the car, but I couldn't find it. I have it somewhere. But yeah, once it's on and the adhesive sets, do not try to move that thing. You will destroy that tag. The funniest one was it was a site out in Phoenix. The guy put the windshield tag on. I think the community did it, and the other guy said, "I want to move it," so he moved it, destroyed the tag, and then tried to put the top layer back on. And he put it below where the adhesive was. And he claimed that the heat of the sun made the tag move. So somehow that tag defied gravity and went up the windshield while the top layer went down, which blew my mind. It just, no. So yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. And then another big one is don't mount sticker tags in the wrong place. So the rule of thumb is if you got a glass style tag, you put it on plastic, you're going to use about 30% of your range, and vice versa. So if you've got a headlamp tag and you put it on glass, you can use about 30%. So if you want the best performance out of it, mount it on the surface that it's actually made for or designed for. And then the last is an internal pet peeve of ours. And this is the way we've been in terms of taking orders. Please do not ask us to make the next available number. We get this request a lot, and the reason why is we've got our internal records. We do track every tag we've made and how we made them and what the IDs were and how we programmed them. The one thing that we don't see though is what if we made this last batch and the community decided to buy fobs or Crocs cards or some other Wiegand device, and they ate up a portion of that next batch you were going to make. And now when I deliver these tags, they're all going to be duplicates. So what we really want you to do is take a look at the community. If you need more tags, have them look in their records of what's the next available Wiegand ID in their system, and then let us make them. Because once we, especially on the plastic sticker tags, once we print them and we program them, there's no reprinting those things. They're pretty much what they are.
Mike, let me jump in on that. Just clarify something on that. We here, Controlled Products, we know better. We would never send you a thing, just use Nexus sequence. So a lot of our customers, they'll look to us to help them with that information, which we certainly can, right? And we do all the time. But our 100% mantra is, I need basically, we've got to have covered the facility code and ID number on the front end before we ever send an order to Infinity RFID, and site name, because there's so many sites out there and some of them have some previous history that are this or that. So but we do cover all that at Controlled Products. So I can tell you from us, you never get that, obviously, you know, I'm sure you get that plenty, but point being, anybody ever needs help on that, that's what our team does. We track all that stuff and we can help cover all that stuff.
Yeah, no, you guys are great at it. This is a general for everybody that's on the call. But it's a good practice to keep, is just make sure that, you know, whoever's buying them, that they know what they've got too.
Let me also point out that even though a dealer may order tags for a specific site, they may purchase them elsewhere and the dealer doesn't have record of any of that. So it is important that the site does keep track of this stuff if possible.
Yeah. And then one thing to say, kind of an extension to that, is because we custom make everything, this site could be, you know, we'll use a different. Yeah, we'll use kind of a tangent to this one. Say we made custom tags for a dealer that had this site from the original install date, and somehow he had a falling out with the community and left, and the community is now looking at a different installer to take over. They typically would go and say, all right, I want the next available for the site, or they try to do something like that. You know, on an extension of that, we made custom tags for that prior dealer. We won't necessarily make the same custom configuration for the new dealer. We need two different pieces of information first. We need to know either from the community, the end user that owns the property, that they've switched service providers, or we're going to need to know that from the prior dealer that, yeah, he's done and he's releasing that community to whoever's next in line. That's another thing. Sorry, that's another thing that we go along that same vein, is we do custom programming. Continuity between batches is another thing. Well, we can actually tell, and we'll make the phone call a lot of times too, where we'll see the next batch, but it'll be different dealer record or something different about it, and we'll make the phone call to Chris or Janine, or maybe even as close if we knew the dealer and say, hey, did you order these, and are these, you know, is this something that you want, going forward? And a lot of times they'll be like, no, I had no idea. Oh, wow, the community just booted me. All right. And then that opens up at least a conversation to say, all right, well, what did I do wrong? Can I make this better? Or the other thing that it does is it also protects the internet from coming in and getting into the equation. I don't want the internet, or I don't want even a dealer to come in there, and for somebody who's already been taking care of a site and taking care of a site for years and supplying tags, to lose a tag sale just because someone came in and offered it at a slightly lower price that had no intention of taking over the account. That's another piece of this that's big, is we monitor that to see, all right, we got a new order, but it's not from the same guy we normally get it from. What's different here? So we'll do some of the detective work just to see, and then notify people. That's another thing that's probably unique, because a lot of the other RFID in the system in the world, if you make one flavor, it doesn't matter where you buy it from, it's still going to work and it's going to be the same IDs. We do things much differently.
Hey, Mike, I got a couple questions here, and then we probably should speed up pretty quickly and get to some of the updates that are coming. But Jerry asked a couple questions. Are all the readers passive, or do you have any active transponder reader options?
All passive, all passive. So everything's 902 to 928 megahertz.
10.4. And do the readers have any kind of visual display or LED indicating to the driver that the tag is read or accepted or denied?
Yeah, the SC1000 has an LED on the front and it's got an audible beeper. So whenever the tag's red, the LED goes from red to blue, and then you hear a beep as it beeps and reads the tag. But the other ones, all the LEDs are on the bottom of and behind the antenna. So from a driver's perspective, you're not going to know the difference. Now, what you can do is all of the readers have some type of a relay output that can be used to drive an external LED light. I've seen people do that where they've mounted a light somewhere to let the driver know, not even just that they've read the tag, but also that there's a weekend output and it's been processed. So that's another thing you can do.
Good add there. Is anything proprietary, or can this integrate with an access control system such as Secure? I'm not familiar with that one, but.
Yeah, it basically is 26-bit Wiegand, so it's not proprietary. Anything that takes that standard should be able to accept the Wiegand output from our interfaces.
10.4.
Yeah. So just quickly, SE1000, if basically you want something that doesn't require a laptop and it's very simple to install, has the audio and visual component on the front of the reader, that would be your guy. If you want something that's Cat5 and a little bit longer read range and be able to remotely talk to it, SP2000 would be your guy. If you want something with the longest read range, you want something that's still Cat5, or you want something that's multi-protocol or a second antenna, the ST2000 would be your reader. And this is kind of a comical. I couldn't believe that somebody mounted a water pipe in front of the reader. But this is our Procyon. This is out in the desert, by the way. So yeah, some of these are pretty intuitive. Don't install the reader behind metal, post signs, water pipes. That's just bad news for you. That'll distort the field. One that happens a lot: don't exceed the maximum cable distance between the reader and the power supply. For a Carina, that's 50 feet. Farther you go after 50 feet, you're going to drop your read zone, your read range. Don't mount more than one RFID reader on the same pole. I've seen that a couple of times. Basically, the two RFID readers are going to fight each other because they're going to both generate fields, and those fields are going to cancel each other out, and where they overlap. Do not install the reader too far from the gate or the drive lane. So if you mount the reader by the phone entry and there's a full vehicle lane or two between it and the gate, you could have somebody drive through really fast, miss the reader, and get stuck in no man's land between the two. So always, as a point, I would always put the reader as close to the barrier, whether it's a barrier arm, a gate, slide gate, or swing gate as possible, just so that they have to slow down and they get in front of the reader as squared up as possible. And then one that's kind of gets lost a lot, because when I go to the job site, there's a lot of places I'll look and go, you need to get the landscaper out, because when you install the reader, the shrub or the bush or the tree was small, and over the years it's grown and now it's covering most of the front of the reader. The water in the leaves, in the shrubbery, in whatever type of landscaping is there will interfere with how much power gets out into the roadway and is able to read the tag. So that's another big one. Make sure all the landscaping is trimmed back and away from the front of the reader and the line of sight into the vehicle lane. And then here's all the updates for 2022. So these are the key things. One of the biggest things is how we do kind of one of the pieces of our security is authentication. How do we know that this is an Infinity tag versus, say, another tag that might be running around out in the market? And that is we have a chip that has a specific ID in it that we verify that is, that's a piece of hardware that's ours. It's good to read, it's good to process. And that piece of hardware, those tags used a chip called the Higgs-3 chip from Alien. Very popular chip, probably one of the most popular chips of all time. Has been out there for over a decade. But things change, technology changes. One of the issues with the Higgs-3, and it doesn't happen in access control land, but it happens definitely on the toll roads, is a thing called a bit flip, where the data will actually change while it's being read by the reader. And this happens, you can imagine toll roads are reading millions and millions of tags. It's been seen in that frequency of reads. It hasn't really been seen in the access control world. But Alien then said, all right, we have this issue. Let's go ahead and let's correct the issue let's come up with some new chips that don't have this, and do some things better. And that's what the Higgs EC is. EC is actually error correction, but it actually can detect errors in its own programming and then correct them from what it was when it first got programmed. So we're getting some benefits out of this. In addition to getting a new chip, we're getting the error correction, we're getting increased sensitivity. And what the sensitivity means is how much power is required to actually make the chip function and work. And if you can increase the sensitivity, you can increase the read lane, or read zone, and the read range that you get off of the tags used with it. So this is a change we're doing on a platform basis. All of our tags eventually are going to be switched over to the Higgs EC from the Higgs 3. One of the things about that, and I think I'll get that in not the next slide, but the slide after that, is there's going to be some changes in firmware to support this activity. So taking a look at the next one, this is kind of a busy slide. We are producing product updates and product bulletins we're distributing. They're talking about these things, but in a nutshell, here's all of the current tags we have on the left, and here's where they're going to migrate eventually to the right. So the first two that are going to migrate, which is happening right now, are our SAHMT002. Our headlamp tag is going from what we called our Aries to the Agena, which is what's going to be on the right side. And then our universal tag down below, which would be our Solana, which is what that S means, is going to a tag called the Zenith. Now, if you look at them, they look identical. There's a slight difference. You look at the very bottom horizontal antenna, there's an extra line on the old version, and there's not an extra line on the new version. That's really the only thing you can see visually that's different. So at first glance, you're not going to know. So what we're going to do in printing, we're going to switch up the way we print the new tags. And that way, if we ask you, hey, is the facility code here or is it here? And depending on where you answer, we're going to know whether it's the old version or the new version. And that'll get us going on, troubleshooting if we need to do that. One side note, looking at the headlamp tag, the Agena, the SGHMT002, if you looked at Transcore's headlamp tag, it looks very similar to that tag. In fact, almost identical. One thing to know is they do not work cross-platform, mine and theirs and mine. And the big thing is the chip is different. They use an ISO B chip that won't even register on my readers. I use an ISO C chip that registers on mine, but won't even register on theirs. But visually, we're thinking about things we can do to differentiate the two. And that way, somebody doesn't make that mistake either. And then we've got some changes in terms of the reader. So our SE1000W reader is going through kind of a certification and an update. Basically, the old RFID engine, the module that was used in the readers that I've been using on the Infinity side have been discontinued. Kind of got the end of the life of the product, and they replaced it with a new RFID module, new RFID engine that creates everything. And we're taking this opportunity to also get it certified for the new Canada certification, and also get it certified for UL. So what you're going to see is a new sticker as soon as that project's done. They actually have samples and they're running through tests right now. You're going to see a new version of the sticker that's going to have a UL mark on it. So it looks identical. It's going to behave slightly different. It's going to beep a little bit differently. It's actually going to read faster, which I think is a good thing. It's going to read faster, meaning it'll read more tags per second than it did prior, which I think is better for higher speed or higher traffic. But in order to be able to go and pick out which one is which, you're going to have to take a look at the back where the stickers are. And I showed you the two different versions of sticker that'll be where the serial number is. So you'll see the SC1000W, you see the SC1000W UL as the main differences, and then you'll see just the certifications will be different. And the last thing is to make that chip platform change. What I'm recommending is on any Carina, and this only applies to the Carina readers. The Procyon and the Tarbos readers have everything built in software-wise, so they don't need any type of a firmware change. The Carinas, though, to accommodate the new chip, need to have their firmware updated, and then to be basically firmware update and then relock down to whatever configuration you have at your sites. So I kind of showed a little bit of it earlier in the call. This is the program where we actually developed these. We're actually going to give the first 100 of these away to dealers. I've got the first 10 that we've made, and then we're gearing up to make another 100. And really, all you're doing, we developed this tool to actually make this very simple, because we know most of the people that are using Carinas are doing so because it's simple and they don't want to use a laptop. We made a tool that you can pretty much turn on, and it's got the same connectors as a Carina would have. You plug the Carina serial into here, plug the power for the Carina into here, and it can actually, with one button, update the firmware of the reader. So what we'll do is we'll preload it with the firmware that you need. We'll preload it with the three most common configurations that you would use. That would either be reading infinity tags only, reading infinity tags, and some legacy tags, which would be your 3M Sirit 4100 tags, or having it open to read. If you're migrating from one RFID source to another, you can leave it open. And in some cases, if I know the dealer and I know all their sites, I can preload it for all of the sites. So that way they can just choose the name of the site, hit configure, and it will actually configure that reader for that site. Lock it down to the facility code, or even a dealer or a community level. So all of that information is actually, I'll show you the prototype. It's actually stored on a flash drive. So in the future, what we can do is we can actually give you new flash drives. It'll give you new firmware or new configurations, and all you have to do is unplug, plug the new one in, and you're good to go. The last really big one that I wanted to show you that's really cool is, if you look, I don't know if you guys can read that, but this is also going to be a Wiegand tester as well. You got 26-bit Wiegand. You can wire into the plug or take the plug off of our module, plug it into here, and it'll display you what Wiegand ID it sees when it comes across. And that way you can go, all right, is it the reader, is it the module, or is it the access controller that's not letting this guy through? If you plug the Wiegand into here, see the Wiegand ID, and it matches what's on the tag, not the reader, not the module, it's got to be somewhere in the access control is the issue. And we're not going to close it down. You could take an HID reader, do the same thing, plug it into here, read the ID. Anything that's 26-bit Wiegand is going to read on this guy. So that's a cool tool that we wanted to, number one, help facilitate this transition, but also be something that you guys can keep around in the toolbox and use in the future as a tool for RFID. And then the last thing was just any questions you guys have, anything you want to know about RFID or in general? Here to answer.
Yeah, feel free to unmute or ask via the chat line. I know we're getting towards the end of our time, but I can hang on a little bit longer if there's additional questions. So I assume we'll need to update part numbers when we're ordering the new tags or the new readers. Look like you're using the same part numbers.
Yeah. I'll go back to that one screen. Here we go. So really what I did is I took, because if you look at the way that I structure my part numbers, the first two digits are the model, and everything I pretty much, Star and I are kind of joined at the hip at this point. So the S is Star. The next one is going to be their particular model, because they name everything after constellations, because there's Star, which is kind of weird. The next three tells you what type of tag it is. So HMT would be a headlamp mount tag, UMT universal mount tag, WMT windshield mount tag. And then the last three are how many pieces there are. So you're going to see just a 1-digit change, really. So if you look at the SVs turn into SCs, because the new windshield tag is called oh man, I'm blanking on it. Let's see if I've got one.
When do you expect to switch over, Mike?
So
Already happening, Zach. We're setting up new part numbers, changing purchase orders, and changing customer orders.
Yeah. So the headlamps and windshields today. Headlamps and universals today. Windshields, I expect to happen probably in the next month or two, as we get through our stock here. And then the rest of the groups, which would be your transferables, your hang tags, your card tags, your license plates, or your, actually I didn't do the metal mount tag in here yet. But those will all be something down the road, because basically I've got plenty of stock, and it'll take a while to work through those before I get into producing new ones with the new chips. And then when it comes to, like, on the heels of that, when it comes to the readers, we've already transitioned to that one too. So the good news is the new readers that came out, in fact, I've been shipping even with the old readers, I've been shipping firmware since August that'll read both the new style tag and the old style tag. So there's a pretty good number of readers in your pipeline and already out in the field that are already updated. But anything that's between, actually, this is one point I kind of missed here on the Carinas that are out in the field. Like the earlier ones, you probably don't need to immediately update because I may or may not have locked them for that chip. But somewhere around 2018, I started locking specific projects. And then in 2019, I wholesale locked everything. So if you've got something that was made in 2019, 20, up to the middle of 21, you're going to want to get a programmer and update the readers you have in circulation. In fact, I would update all of them because there's benefits to the newer firmwares anyway. And anything from the very first one all the way to now is compatible with the module, with the programmer and the new firmware.
10-4.
Yep. Let me see if there's anything else I'm missing here. Yeah, no, I think that's it. If you guys don't have any questions, you can always email me or you can always call me. I can give you my information if you want. Actually, I'm pretty easy to find. If you want to go to infinityrfid.com or infinityrfidinc.com, I actually have two websites. Somebody actually snagged the infinityrfid.com from me when I first started the company, and 4 years later, or 5 years later, I was able to acquire it back. Now I've got two websites.
Perfect. Yeah, if there are no additional questions, we'll close the session. As we always do, again, we'll send out some post follow-up notes and links and contacts to Mike and his team and websites and so on and so forth, including a recording of the session. So that'll go out by end of week here. And I think, the tagline here, though, no pun intended, is accessibility, right? Accessibility to information for Mike and his team, to our RFID team, Chris, Butch, Janine, the rest of that group. We've got answers at the ready for you and ready to support those installations. And as you probably saw in this presentation, I think Mike said it well, but all tags are not made the same. So in my opinion, just in my experience with RFID, I think when you're choosing a product, you should choose a product, based on obviously performance, but take a good look at those tags. Make sure that they're high quality and they're going to fit the application. Outside of that, the proper tag with the proper placement, right? Placement of tag and reader. Again, those are some pretty big pitfalls that I see, and Mike outlined those pretty well. So. Appreciate it, Mike, again, for organizing and presenting. Chris, Butch, Janine, thanks for jumping on and pushing us to host this session. Really good content.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, all. Have a great week.
Mike, thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.